Welcome back. Uh, the Bengal Economic Concave session on industry and trade growth trajectory of Bengal. We have very eminent speakers with us. Srimati Anindita Sengupta, Additional DGFT Minister of Commerce and Industry. Dr. Nagesh Kumar, Director, Institute for Studies in Industrial Development. Mr. Ranjan Kaur, President HR, Inside Industries Limited. The session will be moderated by Mr. Ambarish Rajgupta, past President, the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Senior Partner, Intuity Consulting LLP. With this, I would request Mr. Dasgupta to take the session forward. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, all members, audience, and all my co-panelist speakers.
Good
Nice to have you
afternoon.
here. The name of the session, as given by Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industries, is the trajectory of growth, and expectation is that we will be analyzing the Bengal's growth around industry and trade, and therefore we can get into some qualitative discussion on how the trajectory should look like. Now, of course, to introduce the topic, I was thinking how to set the context to this. Now, about the Bengal's economic growth, there always have been some checkered opinion and feedback. I mean, some feel that Bengal has really not done up to the potential and expectations. Some feel that Bengal, being the sixth largest economy, going at 12.62% state GDP, having around 14.4 trillion rupees in the GDP, is quite decently placed. And some people also feel that no, it's not. Bengal should have done so. Not going into whether Bengal has done well or poorly. We also see in the 2021 budget, the state has also allocated quite a lot of money for industry and industry-related improvements. Now that we have a government in place for the next 5 years, so we can consider that there is some degrees of political stability now for the next 5 years. In context to that, and in context to the entire changes that the world economy is now going through, we just want to think whether there is a chance for re-strategizing the Bengal's industry and the trade plan. In context to whatever world is now going through, in context to the Bengal's present stability, stable political stability, whether we should take a relook at the strategy. Now, in one of the recent Bloomberg papers and also in the last concluded World Economic Forum, we have heard, and all of us know, that there is so much of disruptive forces now. The pandemic has played a little bit of giving a level playing field again, because some people who are very advanced may not be very advanced now. Some countries who are very advanced may not be very advanced now in the economical growth so much. New countries who have not been heard of, they are also coming up right now. The new disruptive forces have set many new identified areas of growth also, areas that we have not earlier thought of or heard of. There were new areas also now coming up. Considering all these things, we are thinking that even if Bengal has not done well, but considering the global scenario mapping into the state situation right now, whether we can now be hopeful once more in the present disruptive situation, whether we can take an advantage of the situation and therefore can recalibrate our industrial strategy, and not possibly exactly going in a way that we have done so far, but can think of in a different way, where the smart investments will be, what kind of innovation should we be bringing in, what kind of rapid modernization should we be bringing in, should we focus more on the trading than on industry, should logistics be considering our position, should be some of the identified areas, should we also focus more on different types of skill development, how we are state which has always been very open to trade and also has so far been very quite populist in terms of inviting the industrialists here. Should they take a relook at their policies, because everything they have done has given their positive indications, positive intentions. But with all those positive intentions that they have, should there be a tactical or a strategic shift in the way they have so far moved in seeking industry and getting trade opportunities for the country? Considering all these things, Bengal Chamber also possibly is now going to now will be sitting with the government to create plan, the industrialization plan for them for the next 5 years. And therefore, in that context, they felt that it would be good to hear from people from industry, from the various areas and also related areas to get their views from the lessons learned from the past and their recommendations, observations, and suggestions. So we have here Mrs. Anindita Sengupta from the Director General of the Foreign Trade Office, who has been so much involved with the foreign trade that where Bengal is, we would love to hear from her as our first speaker on that. And then we will move to Mr. Nagesh Kumar, who also has done a lot of work in the regional trade, in the ASEAN market, analyzing the trade agreements, the RCEP and all that. And therefore, Bengal being so geographically advantageously placed for the ASEAN trade, how Mr. Nagesh Kumar's theories and policies and whatever he has researched can help Bengal to pick up some lessons from there. And then we will move to Mr. Ranjan Sarkar because Exide is one of the biggest investor in this state and they are continuously expanding also. And therefore, having been one of the biggest investor in the state, what kind of experience did they have? Bad, good, not getting into bad, good, but what are the lessons they have learned? What are the things from their experience that we should be more focusing on or can even improve? That is how we have structured, and then there will be question and answer deliberation. So, with this backdrop, I'm now going to Mr. Sengupta to start the discussion with our talk on from DGFT.
Thank you, Mr. Dasgupta.
Administration, admin, can you make everyone apart from the speaker muted, please? Because there is too much of noise. She can't be heard well. Or no, when the admin people, can you mute also all else? Okay, Mr. Sengupta, start, please.
Good afternoon, everybody, once again. And thank you, Mr. Dasgupta, for setting the, what should I say, tone to the discussion that we expect to have in the coming an hour or 40 minutes, whatever. I would, instead of, since I really, I mean, not only from the industry perspective, but what I would like to discuss here would be the general, the environment that West Bengal is in at the moment in terms of trade and the prospects, the issues that ail West Bengal, so to say, despite doing well, and the practical things that we get to see on a day-to-day basis while being in DGFT. Because I think that is something that probably doesn't come out so much as the rest, the academic outputs that come into the domain. I will again take a few things from what Mr. Dasgupta has said about West Bengal being financially doing well economically, being the sixth largest state, and then we talk of 12.62% GSDP growth rate between 2015-16 and 2021, and then having the largest number of MSMEs in the country, employing the largest number of people in the MSMEs. And you must also remember that our export is MSME driven actually. The large quantum of our exports come through MSMEs. So that is a very strong point when it comes to capacities. Then it has the installed power capacity, which is again an indicator of how at least the expectation that one can have from the state in terms of doing well. It has a reasonable power generation capacity. Then the IT exports has also taken off, given the fact that it was way back, sometime maybe a decade or so, we were nowhere in the picture, but West Bengal is seemingly doing very well at the moment and has a very ambitious target of contributing 25% of the exports from the IT and IT enabled services. This is just the backdrop, so to say. Now let us take a look at the products. What is it that compose the first 10 or first 8 or most important things that we export from West Bengal? It is still, if somebody has been following over a period, you would realize that the basket hasn't greatly changed. We are still having, we still have iron, steel, leather, gold, and petroleum products, tea, plastic raw material, human hair, and things like that, which has been there for the last, say, for example, would be a decade or so. There hasn't been great shift. If we are talking of enhancement, there has to be a shift in gears. We cannot just expect an incremental growth in the products that already we are exporting and expect for it to be a game changer for us in West Bengal. Now, coming next to what West Bengal is in terms of what should I say? What goes in favor of West Bengal? How well we are placed. There was a study by Niti Aayog saying about the state's preparedness. While we feature somewhere around ninth or 10th in the list of states doing from in order of exports, the value of exports, but we feature as 22. West Bengal is the 22nd state in terms of preparedness. So there is some gap in, despite the fact that there are a large number of positives. I will just run you through the positives, and then we will talk about actually how DGFT in a sense fits in as an organization under Ministry of Commerce, and how trade facilitation for the state can happen with DGFT being one of the hand-holding organizations. When I was doing I was just going through the general, because once you get used to your regular the trade activities that we deal with, we don't have an overview of what the state actually is capable of. Now, what are the pluses? As I just discussed, that economically it is doing well. Second plus is human skill. We have a reasonable pool of educated manpower, English speaking manpower. That is also an important contributor in terms of, we will come to how when I say this, how. Then the most important factor is the strategic location of West Bengal. West Bengal is, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh. We cater to these countries. When we are the source, we are anybody who goes to these countries goes through us. So this West Bengal, the state of West Bengal is strategically located in that sense. And as Mr. Dasgupta says, and Mr. Nagesh Kumar will take up the infrastructural part of it, and how the connectivity will make an impact. But we are at the state of West Bengal is definitely placed geographically very conveniently, especially catering to the ASEAN countries and all apart from the SAARC countries. Then natural resources. We have abundant water. We are agricultural output is, I think vegetable output is the highest in the country. So there also we are, we feature as a state. West Bengal features somewhere. Then it comes to the fact that what policies the state government has taken towards apart from the ones that the central government keeps doing time to time, but the state government also is seen to be taking a lot of proactive steps in order to improve the what should I say, facilitation process. I would say, in any industry you would need a lot many. There are backward linkages, there are forward linkages. Whether the linkages are working and what sort of improvement is required, there are some policy statements that the government has been making, and I understand that an effort has also been made. Yet, now let us come to this. Yet, having said that, West Bengal has so much and has been able to progress. Yet, what we see is over the last 3 years, West Bengal's share in our total exports is somewhat stagnant. It's 3.05, 3.03, 3.07. So it doesn't really take off in a sense. Even though in totality, maybe the exports have gone up, but the share of exports of the total of India's exports, we still remain in a very stagnant position. Then also very interestingly, the fact that we are as a state, West Bengal is the largest producer of vegetables. It is nowhere in terms of exports of vegetables. The state does not feature greatly in terms of exports of vegetables. So there are gaps in the capabilities, possibilities, and actual execution and actually delivery. These gaps need to be plugged. Now, what is also understood that while we are talking of gaps, and the main issues that come to fore are the ones that we have the number of agencies which are engaged in export promotion. both from the central government as well as the concerned state government. Now, when you have multiple agencies doing the same thing, there is a lot of overlap. So, and the overlap, as much as there is overlap, there is also much of sharing of responsibility. And with sharing of responsibility also comes the fact that we cannot hold any particular entity responsible. There is no one point redressal of issues. So that is one major issue that we come across, and why as DGFT we come across, I will come to that. Now, what has happened is DGFT in the last year, the Ministry of Commerce has initiated. This is the Prime Minister's scheme, so to say, the idea of developing every district as a export hub. Now we have data. I mean, I don't want to go into data because data can, when you don't have a visual impact, just listening to data doesn't greatly help. But we have the first time Ministry of Commerce has been able to sort of fetch us some district-wise data. Now, district-wise export data helps us in identifying the important products in each district. We yet don't know what are the potential products. So when it comes to the question of potential products, then we need the state government, then we need the district machinery, and then comes the what should I say, this plan of having districts as export hubs. What has happened is two committees and I know that the generally the industry is very skeptic of committees because we have a large number of committees all over the place, and it ends with reports and then there is nothing further. But this is intended to be a continuous process where you have a committee at the state level and committees at district levels. The idea of and the DGFT will be representing the Ministry of Commerce in these committees. The idea is that to help the districts to identify the products which have a possibility. The councils, we have the trade promotion councils, which also will form a part of this. This will be another layer where they will help these to identify, not only identify the products, identify the markets, then the finances involved, and then the facilitation, because there are a lot of costs, hidden costs and other costs that the exporters have to incur, and as a result of which, quite often we have seen that there is a little bit of, I won't say little bit, there is a lot of hesitation in the small exporters because the margins are so thin that they don't find it worthwhile to go that extra mile. And also we must remember that whatever we produce, there is a huge consumption demand in the country itself. So, to overcome that and to have that surplus to be able to export is also another challenge that every state would face, including West Bengal. Then comes the MSME. I mean, this is all part of the district export plan. We also do, the DGFT as an organization does a lot of handholding with MSMEs. Now, MSMEs are given importance for this only reason that they not only that they contribute 45% of the exports, but they have a potential to go deep down, deep back. We do not, as government is looking towards developing each district, that would mean that we want to go deep, go back, go beyond, so that the benefits also accrue and people. I mean, I will share a very interesting story. I mean, it's interesting tale when we have this something called quality complaints. Now, quality complaints, during a quality complaint meeting, we came to know about, I think I shared this with somebody else also, that how a small farmer came in contact with somebody who encouraged him to export pan, betel leaves actually, and is doing very well. Now, that is a very small. What I'm trying to say is that instead of large scale, when we talk of industry, we are always talking of scale. We are talking of investment. We are talking of manufacturing. We are talking of as much as that is required, because that fetches you more in terms of earnings, foreign exchange. But given a country like ours, we still have a lot of potential in agriculture, agro-based products, food processing, horticulture, also handicrafts. There is huge potential. And then West Bengal has tea. So every district would have something or the other. If not every district, at least 50% of the districts can surely be developed. When while doing this, there another concept paper has been. I won't say concept paper. Concept has been floated of having hearts, export hearts. Now that is not new. We have these border hearts. We have these fairs, annual fairs, where the exporters do go abroad to show off their wares. But this export heart is for a different purpose altogether. This export heart would be in each state, where the other states would also come to exhibit their wares, whatever be it products, and then we would have the buyers, the industry, as well as, I mean, it could be the industry and the exporters could be suppliers. It's a value chain. And finally, we would have buyers as well from abroad to come. This is at a very, very nascent stage. Now, when I say that we have multiple agencies doing it, what should I say? It doesn't really yield in terms of results is the fact that we would have these efforts in a very small scale at every level. The MSME would also be organizing something. I'm sure there is a West Bengal. I think they have a West. I am forgetting the name of the body. West Bengal Export Promotion. There is a society which promotes exports in West Bengal. Now I don't know. I have been here for 3 years, but I have never interacted with them. Now that makes it difficult because they would be having an activity at their end, while all of us are working in silos will be having ours. So for the way forward in case of West Bengal, according to what the what should I say from the end of DGFT would be, that we would let us first identify the products district wise. Let us look at the infrastructure requirements. Let us look at the funding requirements, and let us draw up a plan. When we have a plan, so we have a district wise plan and we work towards it. We set milestones and work towards it. So that we may not this may not lead to success in case of all districts, but something surely will come up, and some what should I say, unrealized potential in certain districts would come up. Now the other thing, the final, I wouldn't take up too much time, but I would like to talk of service exports. I don't think in West Bengal the potential is realized. West Bengal has a large number of educational institutions, and there are neighboring countries, and the educational institutions are good. So if we are able to have foreign students, that would be one. Two would be medical tourism. Medical tourism, I think many hospitals down the in Calcutta do have patients from Bangladesh, just to begin with. But if we go to places like Tamil Nadu, one would realize that they are all over the world. I mean, you have patients from Africa, you have patients from Southeast Asia. So we have to be able to improve our, what should I say, infrastructure to make it worthwhile for patients to come to Bengal and particularly to Calcutta, because we have not been able to develop the other side. Then comes the ITES. As it's a very ambitious plan, and so far West Bengal has definitely improved a lot. But we must remember that all potential in terms of educated manpower in IT is traveling down south. So that there we have to provide, the government will need to work out a mechanism whereby they are able to provide that platform where we are able to retain that kind of manpower, because there lies again another potential as far as West Bengal is concerned. These are largely my thoughts, and the other things that we have come across while we interact with exporters and interact with the other stakeholders is the fact that certain infrastructure is badly missing. Say, for example, the vegetable exporters complain about cold storage is not being available. Then the sanitary and phytosanitary requirements that are there, the lack of knowledge sometimes causes huge losses because the consignments are returned. So these small things, they may appear very small, but they have a huge impact in terms of goodwill, quality. Reputation is there to stay. I mean, as if a reputation is built for a certain product from a certain space, it stays. So the government needs to work towards quality, needs to work towards branding We have, as a country also, we have not been able to brand a lot. I mean, our products go abroad, get they use their brands and sell it. So there is something that we may look into as far as West Bengal is concerned, particularly for tea. And this is by and large all. I think I would wait to hear Mr. Kumar on the infrastructure part of it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sengupta. I have a lot of questions, but I'll come back to you after the speakers have finished their talking. So we will go to now Mr. Nagesh Kumar, who will be giving us an idea about the regional cooperation and the regional trade.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. First of all, it's a pleasure to join you all in this Bengal economic conclave after the recent elections. And I think it's very timely, as I can see, for strategizing how Bengal can emerge as an economic hub of the country and take advantage of the opportunities that are available. And I think the strategic location of West Bengal, as Ms. Anindita Sengupta already referred to, that this is a state which is on the crossroads of India, Bhutan, India, Nepal, and India, Bangladesh, of course. And, so there are many opportunities arising from this very unique geographical location. I don't think there is any other state of India which is on the crossroads of number of countries. And if you consider maritime boundaries, you will find yourself connected with a dozen of the countries possibly. So taking advantage of what is called as economics of neighborhood, economics of geography, I think there are some real opportunities for West Bengal to capture and exploit and become a hub and a gateway of India for regional economic cooperation, especially as a part of India's Look East, Act East policy. And of course, even the Southern Asia, the Eastern South Asia, for instance, the BBIN region, which covers all the three neighboring countries with which West Bengal shares borders, the land borders, and besides the maritime boundaries. So what I was drawing your attention to is this economics of neighborhood. I think most interesting example, which is very livid in my memory, is the way European Union, before making this single European market plan, exploited these economies of neighborhood. I think when the single market plan was put into motion in 1992, 1992, the discussion was that European countries were small, markets split, and none could be competitive. The way Mr. Bhargava was talking about competitiveness. So none of them could achieve economies of scale and be competitive. So we benefit from becoming one single market. We lift all the border controls and allow efficient transport, logistics across the countries, and that would enable what is called as efficiency-seeking restructuring of industry to become more competitive. Just to give you one very simple example, IBM, before the single European market plan was put into motion, operated in each of these European countries, small nationally oriented operation, which will cover their, mainframe business, which will cover their, the personal computer business, their telecommunication business, their all other activities. After the single market plan, what they did was to specialize economies of specialization and economies of scale by efficiency-seeking industrial restructuring. So what they did, personal computers plant, all of them were located in England. The communication business was located in Italy. Mainframes went to Germany for entire Europe. So PCs in England for entire Europe. Mainframes in Germany for entire Europe. The communications business served from Italy to for entire Europe. So this is a different way of working or different way of organizing your businesses. That earlier every unit was doing everything. Now every unit is doing only one thing for entire market, entire regional market. So this is possible if you have low trade barriers and efficient logistics. Now, for West Bengal, I mean, to benefit from this economics of neighborhood, I think the most important thing is to have a very efficient movement of goods across the borders. And in that context, I want to share a concept of what we did at UNS. I mean, before just taking over this position, I used to be a director in UNSCAP, which is a UN's regional arm for Asia and the Pacific, based in Bangkok. And we were doing a lot of work on regional connectivity issues. And there were Asian Highway Network project, there was a Trans-Asian Railway project, and there was a third project on linking the dry ports all across Asia. And in South Asia, so we built a proposal or a kind of blueprint of a container train movement running all across the width of Asian southern part of the region. So we called it ITI-DKDY. ITI is Istanbul, Tehran, Islamabad, Delhi, Kolkata, Dhaka, and Yangon. But if you consider this part from Delhi, Kolkata, Dhaka, Yangon, which is, the part we are looking at today, I think if it is connected through a very efficient, seamless container train corridor, with new technology, RFID chips put on the containers, so no need to open them up at the borders. Containers move on back and forth. This could help in bringing down the cost of trade, by 55%, and the time even more. So time of delivery. So this is the kind of efficiency gains which can occur and become available to trade, making it more efficient. Now, in that context, let me also share with you, we did some estimations of cost of doing trade within South Asia and South Asia's trade with distant regions like Europe and North America. And we found, to our horror and shock, that cost of doing business or cost of doing trade within South Asia was higher than cost of doing trade with North America or Europe. Meaning a container going between one of the two locations in South Asia costs more than sending that container to North America or Europe. Now, how on earth we can expect to exploit the economics of neighborhood when we are sitting next door to each other and cost of trade is as high or higher than doing trade with North America or Europe? So I think we need to find ways to exploit our economics of neighborhood by developing more efficient, seamless ways of transporting, shipping our goods across the borders, and using new technology to have these movements seamlessly. And wherever it has been implemented, it has shown results. 2 years ago, we worked with the Container Corporation of India I'm talking of my time at UNESTA. We worked with Container Corporation of India and its counterpart in Bangladesh to have a demo run of a container train between Kolkata and parts of Bangladesh. And after that, there was so much of interest generated that there are some container movements happening, and that has facilitated, trade in a very big manner. There was a news 5 days or 4 days ago in Economic Times that Bangladesh now occupies fifth largest destination, place among India's export destinations. So this has happened because we tried to improve the logistics. We tried to improve the facilitation at the borders of trade. But this is only scratching a surface. We have a lot of potential of improving the logistics and trade facilitation at our borders. And there is no reason why it cannot be done, because this geography was actually not having any borders just only 70 years ago. So we were, having seamless movements between these countries. India and Bangladesh and West Bengal and Bangladesh are parts of the same larger province. So these barriers were erected by us, and we can also bring them down. Use new technology that has become available and bring down the cost of doing trade. And I think West Bengal not only can emerge as a hub of industry and trade, but it can also actually become a hub of India's look-east policy. It should become. It should lead by example. I mean, rest of the India states, are not able to understand and recognize the benefits that regional cooperation, regional economic integration can bring. And so West Bengal has this opportunity, has this capacity because of its unique geographical and strategic location that it should exploit. And I think if it starts doing that, the benefits to the state's economy would be huge. I mean, if all of India's trade to Bangladesh, to Myanmar, and rest of Southeast Asia, once these larger corridors, larger regional corridors become operational, and all of these containers start moving across the borders on this regional corridor, the revenue, the transit revenue that will accrue to the Bengal economy could be very substantial. And then wherever these trade corridors, transport corridors pass through, they generate economic activity around them. This is a very well-known fact. And so once West Bengal finds itself on a major trade, route of Asia, connecting, India with the eastern, neighbors, Southeast Asia and beyond. And there are many, proposals on the table of that sort. So all of that is possible because railway lines are there. We need to only connect some of the gaps and provide an efficient trade facilitation mechanism to exploit this physical connectivity that is there. And once it is done and the huge movements of trade begin to take place through Bengal, it would be a major game changer for this state's economy. And it would become a state which will, drive India's integration with not only the immediate neighbors, but also the larger eastern neighborhood. I see the hand raised by the moderator. Perhaps my time is up. So I'll stop here, but I can come back to some of these points in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kumar. We will come back to you with some questions, but since we already have exhausted the time given to us by the organizer, 40 minutes, so I don't know how much time we'll be getting for question answer session. But with this, I now move to Mr. Shorkar, from Exide. As I mentioned, they have already done a lot of investments in Bengal, so lessons learned from that.
Looking at, okay, good afternoon, good evening, actually, everybody. Good evening, Mrs. Sengupta, Mr. Kumar. I think on this subject, after they have spoken, my my talking will be very less because I am just part of one industry, and Mrs. Sengupta and Mr. Kumar is actually handling bureaucratic positions of handling the entire trade and this thing. But so I will like to just keep it very brief to Exide experience as a industry person. So, as you rightly said, Mr. Amrish, that Exide 40% of our investments in manufacturing is in West Bengal. And as we talk, we are also investing in one more factory of which is going to be a metal extraction factory that will, and slowly in years time, I think 50% of our manufacturing will be in West Bengal. While and let me share a couple of things which I see as a glass half full and not half empty for West Bengal. Well, so-called there are a lot of industrial states which has actually attracted a lot of investments, but still, why did Exide choose to invest most here? First is, while the entire world is getting competitive on cost, our West Bengal factories are the lowest cost compared to all other factories. The labor is a big labor availability and labor cost. These are the two very important factors for any manufacturing or, for that matter, even service sector. I think Bengal has this advantage, which is, as Mrs. Sengupta said, maybe a marketing is required of this state a lot. I have myself, at a personal level, worked for 20 years in Maharashtra. I have only returned to Kolkata in last 5th year. So I can, so that's why I'm saying I can clearly see that there is so many positive things that this state has. While Exide has invested, but this is my personal opinion. There's so many things that this state has which needs to be really marketed. We talked about educated, cheap labor. Not cheap is a wrong word. I would say optimum cost. This thing we have power surplus. So resources are all there. Water is, some of the states have not even half the water that West Bengal has. Industrial water, we have that. Our water bills are better. So that way, I think it has got a lot of positives, and we would like to, and I'd like to really emphasize on this. That's one point. Second is in industry. One is we're talking about manufacturing, but there is also another part about white collar employees, which are now which are largely city based. Having lived in many cities myself, I feel that the quality of life is better in Kolkata, and so Exide as a company have, while many companies have shifted base and changed, Exide has never felt the need because people who even from other states who have come here and worked with us have stayed with us. Exide has a very low attrition, very low churn rate. People almost 1% or something like that. So, which means that culturally adopting to people and actually making other community people comfortable here is something very much there in this state. So that's why we have always felt very when we had multicultural talent from different states coming to us, they have stayed with us. So these are a couple of things which I just wanted to add, where I feel that it has made us a good journey, and anywhere from the government side, which we have always got the support, and I think we had a very good experience working in this state and continue to invest in this state. This is an industry view. I can just share.
Thank you, Mr. Sharkar. Thank you. That's really very heartening to hear from you on the positives of the Bengal, like the skilled workforce, the cost being lesser compared to others, and everything is conducive as it looks like to do proper business in Bengal. That's very nice.
Just one point before I end. Somebody mentioned about the exports. I think very few cities like Gujarat has one, Chennai would have one, Kolkata. So some few metropolitan cities have got a port attached. I think the potential of Bengal's trade can go very multiple times up if the port opportunity is exploited much more. If that becomes much bigger, the kind of shipping and kind of things that happens at Kandla and other ports, if that is one factor, I think, where we can do much more because that will boost our exports. Thank you. Thank you. I
We will
just
go
kept
back
it
to
short.
Mrs.
Yeah.
Sengupta, thank you, Mr. Sharkar. We'll go back to Mrs. Sengupta with few questions. Thank you for explaining to us very clearly the DGFT's role and the good things that DGFT is now working on. Considering, as you yourself mentioned, and you all know that West Bengal being primarily dominated by the MSME, and MSME means they're small, scattered, even there are very micro enterprises. Now, if we are focusing very much on export and trade, outbound trade, how would all these scattered MSMEs be getting to be aware of all the initiatives that DGFT is taking, and how will they actually avail an outreach program? Because they would not be knowing, even when Mr. Nagesh Kumar is giving us the positive indications of trading with an ASEAN country from Bengal, but like a farmer in Birbhum or a very small manufacturer in Bankura, what is the mechanism by which you are making these things more percolated down?
Yeah, that is a very pertinent question, Mr. Dasgupta, actually, because as I said that Bengal is rich in MSMEs and that is to be exploited. I also understand that the government of West Bengal has formed clusters. So it is, in a sense, unorganized, in a sense, organized. You know, you can sort of have compartments of MSMEs. Now, when it comes to outreach or when it comes to information dissemination is the biggest challenge. There is no debate about it. While, before COVID times, we would have outreach programs in deep into the states also. I mean, as say, for example, we go to a place in Siliguri, from there to some other place close by. But having said that, the mechanism of district export hubs, I am hoping, when you have a proper, what should I say, plan in place, you have the district authorities on board, you have the GMDICs, the district industry centers on board, and you have the MSMEs on board and DGFT together, it is then that you can actually meaningfully inform them. Because for them the FTAs they are not able to register. It doesn't go to their, you have to give them a business proposition. Okay, you do this and we will get this sold to somebody for you to earn this much. I'm talking of right at the bottom when we're talking of this. Now, this information and this hand-holding can happen only when we actually activate this proposal of district export hubs, which is already on. I mean, it's not as though I'm saying something new. We have been working on it for the last 1 year. It's only because of the pandemic that the work has been a little scattered. But we hope that in the coming months we can give it a little more structure for it to be more effective.
Okay, right. Yeah, right. And so far, I mean, my second question to you is that from compared to all the states, in terms of interacting with the DGFT from the local state bodies, which you just now mentioned, there are so many export bodies that every state has. I mean, how active have you seen Bengal? I mean, does the center-state equation play a role in that, or even if you do not want to get into that, but generally, how active have you seen Bengal in that?
See, I will not. I do not think there is any, what should I say, we are not viewed as somebody representing center. You're just an organization which is familiar with the licensing work. However, trade facilitation is a what should I say? It was a peripheral activity earlier. You would do it as a matter of plus. You do the licensing work and as an addition. But now trade facilitation has gained a lot of importance. There's a lot of focus. Now, I have not seen any, what should I say, lack of interest in the state government authorities as far as promotion of exports go. We've had meetings. It is sometimes you must also understand that their priorities earlier was in terms of industrial development, agricultural development did not really relate to exports as such. It is only in last 1 year or maybe the last 2 years that the focus has shifted to export-led activity, something that you focus with exports in mind. So this has happened only in the last 1 or 2 years. I have not seen any lack of interest at all. In fact, there was a time when there was extreme interest, and we've had a lot of activity with WBIDC, and in consultation with them, having outreach programs which we do on a regular basis. Even now, we do conduct outreach programs, but it is on a virtual medium, and on a virtual medium, it is very difficult to what should I say, communicate well with the last mile. We found it extremely difficult.
Yeah, but even then, the disappointing factor is, as you mentioned, that in spite of all those, as of now, the Bengal share in the overall national export is much lesser, and much needs to be done on that. So, anyway, going back to Mr. Nagesh Kumar, thanks, Mr. Kumar, for a very good treatment on how the regional equations do play a role. But in terms of all the non-tariff barrier, or the tariff barrier, or the trade agreements which we have, which India has with ASEAN countries. You mentioned those things, but considering us as a state, I mean, do we really have anything to influence those kinds of activities just from a state perspective? Is there anything that a state can do in terms of creating any such agreements, even in the development of an infrastructure through the ASEAN countries? Do you see any role that a state can play in that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a very important question. You see, trade policy of a country is, of course, in negotiations level, is done at national level, of course. But implementation, when it comes to implementation, I think it is the specific state which is at the crossroads that can play a very important role in implementation, as I was saying, through providing efficient logistics. So if we are not able to move goods across the borders efficiently, then these free trade agreements that might be there are of no use. So free trade agreements are useful only as much as we can exploit them and work them. So the real trade happens through borders, whether land borders or maritime borders. And there, I think the states concerned, and in this case, Bengal being a very strategic, state in terms of its geographical location, connecting India with 3 neighboring countries, and through these neighboring countries, if we give effect to that regional corridor through Myanmar to rest of ASEAN and East Asia. So we are talking of a huge geography and the emerging center of gravity of the world economy. So this state, if it begins to exploit the opportunities available to it through efficient infrastructure, efficient logistics, it can really drive India's integration and trade with the rest of East Asia. So I suppose negotiation is only a small part of regional economic integration. Implementation is the real thing, and there, I suppose, the state like Bengal can do a lot. I stop here.
With a point from you, I'll again once again go back to Mr. Sengupta, particularly from a question from the DGFT perspective. Now, since the Ministry of the Commerce as well as possibly Ministry of External Affairs, they're all going through the creation of such trade agreements between the various countries, and the clauses being kept as conducive as possible for the country to export with those countries. And also there are so much of infrastructural investments being made by government or by the multilateral agencies, which also are conducive factors, enabling factors to the country exports. Now, does DGFT take into consideration all these things which are happening and therefore analyze a state's relative strength, weakness, on which countries they should be going to get advantage of these agreements that Mr. Nagesh Kumar is talking about? Do they create such analysis, thereafter advise that Bengal, look, these are your enabling trade agreement clauses and therefore you should be more utilizing these from these products, these countries, these trade paths, these routes? So does DGFT play a role in that?
Yes, it is something that it's good that it came up. We did have, again, as I said, it is all before the difficult times, where the FTA outreach was also happening. What was it? The FTA outreach was designed to be this way, that we had somebody who was handling the FTA division in Ministry of Commerce, who would come and, in a sense, make it simple, understandable, because it may not be possible for everybody to sort of interpret the FTAs to their needs and benefits thereof. So FTA outreach programs are also conducted through DGFT. We provide a platform for that. That is something that doesn't happen as often as it ought to. And I totally appreciate your point that it is very important for us to have an understanding of FTAs, at least at the level of policy making for the state, if not anything, that they should know what it entails and they should accordingly tailor their policies and plan accordingly to make maximum benefit out of the FTAs. That is a suggestion. Probably I will also take it up with my headquarters to have a meeting with the state governments, concerned state governments, on FTAs. Maybe that will be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, we have been discussing very much on the trade and the movement of the goods from the country to the other countries. Let's come to Mr. Sarkar. I mean, more to the industry part, not on the trade part, because he has really invested in Bengal. And now, Mr. Sarkar, you handle, you are the president HR in Excite, so therefore you will be very much into the industrial relations, and you will be possibly handling the IR, the labor force, the skill, and everything. Now, we also know that there are a lot of Bengal. I'm not tracking it on a day-to-day basis, but at some point in time, the ease of doing business in Bengal, in that scoring, Bengal was very high. Bengal actually went up to a very high position. In fact, they actually reached the topmost position, and then I don't know exactly where they are now, but maybe moving in the very top places only. Now, labor policy played an important role, and now also the labor codes which have come, the new labor rules which are coming out, the 4 labor codes, these are getting implemented. Now, did you find in Bengal, from the various factors, labor being one, really very positive, conducive, very enabling, particularly more emphasis on the labor, if you can give and tell us that what was your experience with that?
Okay, this is a very
Hello?
sensitive topic. So, yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, so labor is always been a very sensitive topic. So basically, I can say that, every state goes through a cycle of high economic highs and lows, and even on the labor front, certain less industrialized states become more industrialized state, and again, somebody else beats. So my experience has been, as I told you, I worked a considerable years of my life in some of the um, on paper more industrial states of this country. So obviously, when I came to West Bengal back, I had some apprehensions. But what I realized that it is not so, because a lot of grievance redressal processes are there, and it depends also on the company and its background with the industry and its labor. At least in case of Excite, not only on less cost, but we are having the most peaceful industrial relations here. Maybe there have been some incidents in the maybe in the 90s or something that has pushed away many industries from West Bengal, but I think there is a cycle change happening, because when I go to other states which are more industrialized, whether, and let's say Maharashtra or Gujarat, the the cycle of power is coming in, and there are more uh, it is not publicized so much, but there are more difficulties in labor handling that. Maybe they're more organized, but labor relations are not so easy there as well. Exide has factories in north, i- in the Manesar belt, and where all the auto hubs are. It has this in south. We have factories in Maharashtra, Gujarat, and West Bengal. Largest hub being West Bengal. We chose to stay in this way because we find the redressal process and the IR is actually now more uh, so far conducive. And we never had any strikes or any big ticket kind of difficulties that are here. So maybe the cycle is turning because the newer generation is coming into labor, and they are interested in productive discussions. They're interested in so maybe some of those 80s and 90s labor movements are going through a cycle of change, and a newer generation is bringing in a more pragmatic approach in the labor community. So that is touched. Our experience so far has been very good, and that's why we are investing here.
Thank you. I really want the message that you are giving goes out to all the big industrialists in the country, so that sometimes a wrongly placed perception possibly can start changing. I mean, this is so wonderful to hear.
Yeah, yeah, and just to add to that, one thing you talked about message going out to all. See, if you see some of the states, some of the cities, they have rode on a wave of a particular decade. Every decade, a particular industry becomes a boom. For example, perhaps in the automotive boom when it happened in early 2000, maybe no, Delhi side and Tamil Nadu side, there have been a lot of somebody rode that wave. Then the IT boom came in. Then the places like Pune, Bangalore actually took off that. So I think the West. So every cycle, every decade, a certain industries become a boom. So I think the if West Bengal has to, since this program is about West Bengal's trade future, maybe one has to now look at that. What is the next boom that West Bengal should ride that wave? One is definitely, since we are in the energy sector, we see that energy is a big sector coming up. Green energy, renewable energy. That's so we have to look at those sectors which are bringing the next 10 decades, and that's how certain states have really caught those waves and have gone up. Just to add on.
No, this is
Thanks.
a very good point. In fact, when I started, I mentioned that now, since the world has gone through so much of changes over the last 1.5 years, so even if some state or country which has been not possibly doing so well, I'm not naming anywhere, Bengal or anybody. So the Bloomberg
Yes.
has also mentioned that maybe the newer disruptive forces is creating a level playing field,
Yes.
so many new things to think about, so that those countries can also now come up. So thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, you were to add something, Mr. Chopra? Where you plan?
No. I just said yes because
Okay.
sectors which are already matured, like automobile, they Bengal will play only a catching up game. But if you can find out those sectors which are disruptive in the next 10 years, then you are a pioneer. Then you know that's what I'm saying is the opportunity.
Now, I'll go back to Mr. Nagesh Kumar with one last question, but I really wish that this discussion could have gone on for long, but now we've already overshot our time by 20 minutes. So I'll go back with the last question to Mr. Nagesh Kumar. Mr. Kumar, of course, the one important part is cost of doing trade, and which you mentioned, that you touched and cost of doing trade should be an important determinant in terms of the country. Now, had there been any, I mean, the analysis done by your institute or even by DGFT or the ministry of the cost of doing trade state-wise, like in that where the Bengal features compared to other states, like apart from the standard tariff barrier where possibly the states cannot play a role, but there are so many non-tariff barriers which kick in and which contribute to the cost of trade also. Many intangible costs also do keep on kicking in. So have there been any state-wise analysis that how Bengal features in terms of cost of doing trade?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, actually, there are a number of reports which compare states, and there was one I was looking at on, issued by the Niti Aayog recently on competitiveness indicators across states and innovation indicators across states. But cost of doing trade across states, I haven't come across, and certainly UNSCAP or ISID, with which I have been associated with, have not done that. But this is something which is very much desirable to be done, and so that the governments of states can take steps to improve and quality of infrastructure, quality of logistics movements between states and the other neighboring countries. So it's something very useful where I'm sure someone will try to look into this. Thank you.
Thank you. So, gentlemen and lady, Mr. Sengupta and ma'am, we have to come to the end, and it was wonderful, really. But this is not a subject that could be treated within the confines of 45-50 minutes, which I will surely be interacting with you personally on this subject. But two good action items came up. And maybe as one action item that Mr. Sengupta mentioned, that the DGFT can get into more of an analytic role with the trade agreements and the various infrastructural developments coming up, and therefore get into more strategically positioning the states, that how they can better leverage some of these clauses and see which one will play to whose strengths. And by that, they can sharpen their strategic outreach to the states and help in the process, the states as well. The other action item that came up, and as Mr. Kumar also felt, that will be good to do if we can really work out the cost of doing trade with the states. And now that since the global value chain is an in thing, everybody's talking about GVC after World Bank has floated this, and therefore what effective role the states can play by decreasing their cost of trade in the entire GVC. So these are the two very strong action items that came up. And thanks, Mr. Kumar, thanks, Mr. Sengupta, for your for giving us such a good understanding on the trade side. And Mr. Sharkar, thanks very much for really feeling us very excited and confident about the state's scenario in terms of the labor skills, the cost, and policies also. Thank you. Thanks to Bengal Chamber, and thanks to all the speakers.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your time, and thank you all of the panelists for joining us today. Mr. Ambarish Dasgupta, Ms. Srimati Anindita Sengupta, Dr. Nagesh Kumar, and Mr. Ranjan Sarkar. We thank wholeheartedly all of you for your time and your very insightful discourse for today's session. With this, we come to the end of today's proceedings. This was the day one of our Bengal Economic Conclave. We would come back on 30th of June with the day two of this conclave. We will be having the august presence of the Honorable Minister in charge, Dr. Partha Chatterjee, with us, and our office bearers will be in discussion with him. That session will be at 12:30. The registration details and everything will be given separately to you over the next few days. So thank you for staying with us. And before I conclude today's proceedings, it would be incomplete if I don't name the sponsors without whose support today's session couldn't have been, formulated. So we would like to thank our gold sponsor, Tata Metallics Limited, silver sponsors, Exide Industries Limited, CESC Limited, and Indorama India Private Limited. Our associate sponsors, Synergist Energy Private Limited, International Combustion India Limited, JIS Group, and Tata Steel Downstream Products Limited. We have industry support from BSE Limited, Swachh Environment Private Limited, Haldia Water Services Private Limited, and Tax Connect Advisory Services LLP. Thank you so much for your time. See you on 30th. Have a nice day. Bye.